What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of It's No Coincidence, your weekly dose of real talk and inspiration. And today we have Tali Dee with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Bobby?
I'm doing pretty good today. I'm really excited about our conversation because you're a therapist, correct?
I am. I am a therapist.
Yes. I see, I'm loving this. I'm really big on everything mental health,
Mhm.
getting better for yourself, everything like that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I haven't ever had someone like you on the podcast before.
Okay.
I usually deal with, artists and music and
Ah,
things like that. But ever since I started this podcast, I want to expand out into um anything that interests me. So
absolutely.
yeah, so what I want to know your journey into that first. Let's start there so
Okay.
we can get a good understanding. Like, how did you get into that, and like where are you with it now? Because also I know, like, watching your content, that you're like making some changes and stuff.
Oh, yes.
So
See,
yeah.
you've done your research. Yes, a lot of changes are, are occurring. I mean, I think I've known for a really long time I wanted to be a therapist. I grew up in Haitian culture, and there is a lot of moments where you're not allowed to get the answer of why. And I'm a very curious
Mm,
person. And so after some time, I was like, well, in order for me to figure out the why, I need to get some education on, how to understand human behavior and why folks won't give the whys, why people do give the whys. And,
mm,
I really do love to support other people. I think we've all had experiences of ups and downs, and the downs don't feel so good. So at some point, I was probably like 22. I was like, okay, let's go to grad school. So I
yeah.
hopped on over to Chicago, went to grad school
Hey, I love
for,
Chicago.
I love Chicago too. I miss it so much sometimes. Like the food, the people,
Hmm.
like the lake, the summertime. Ugh.
I was actually born like in the suburbs over there.
Oh,
That's where I was
really?
born. Yeah, yeah.
Where?
In wow, why am I blanking? Oh man, I only lived there till I was 3.
Oh, no. Okay. I hear you. Like,
Yeah, I'm
like
blanking.
north or south or like
Um,
west.
oh, Algonquin. It's like an
Algonquin.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I've never been over there, but I have heard that name because there's some very unique names over in Illinois for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago was dope, and I got a really good education. A lot of the places I worked at had really, really supportive mentors. And then the pandemic happened right about the time I was going to finish up.
Okay.
And that's where things started to change for me a little bit. So I had a really rough internship, a really rough postdoc. I was in, I think I was in Northern Virginia, DC area for like the end of that, and then 2 years after, and that's when I started to question. Okay, well, mental health has changed so much. So many people need it, but we're not getting the
Hmm.
support and the resources that we need. I'm feeling incredibly burnt out. And I just spent what 9 years total, like trying to get this program done, trying to like skirt discrimination and all those things. And so I finished the degree, and for a little bit I was like, all right, like we got the PhD, we're gonna be a psychologist soon, just got to get the license, okay. And then
Hmm.
like the burnout just set in, and I was
Mm.
like, oh, I don't know if I could be a good therapist to other people right now.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so I was like, let me take a step back. And I took a little bit of a break.
Hmm.
It basically was like a year and a half. And around that time, I was thinking about, how everybody was really enjoying mental health. And I was like, well, maybe I could just like turn mental health into something different, talk to more people because I love, having an audience to speak to about mental health. And,
Hmm.
that time and TikTok kind of showed up around the same time. And so I just was
Hmm.
like, let me just start talking. And I started talking, and apparently people started
For
listening a
sure.
little bit.
When did you start TikTok?
I think it was like, oh, I hopped on TikTok 2021 as a viewer.
Hmm.
And then maybe late 2021, early 2022, I was like, all right,
Okay.
every once in a while I'll post, but I didn't take it seriously until I guess it was a year ago.
Oh
So,
wow.
like August of 2023 was like the first video that like blew up, and people
Hmm.
were really responding so kindly and positively. And it really just like shocked me because I thought I was talking into the ether and,
Hmm.
just like laying on my
That's
floor saying
definitely how
whatever.
it feels at first, for
Right?
sure. It's like you're talking to yourself.
Right. It's
Absolutely.
exactly. And then, I've met so many cool people from there, like you. And, I should also say that my TikTok, I will always have like an undertone of mental health because that's what I care about
Hmm.
the most. But I needed to talk a little bit about creativity and burnout in the context of mental health. So I
Hmm.
realized the reason why I was so burnt out was because I was giving all my energy to everyone else and not myself.
Mm.
And I also had given up every single interest of mine, in the efforts to get a degree, right? You're just
Okay.
focused, 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 like sports, music, art, baking, cooking, everything
Hmm.
was just gone. And if I tried to bring it back, like it just didn't have a spark. And so that's when I started talking about my inner creative because I didn't know who she was or where she was,
Got you.
And so since then, it's been this interesting journey of like educating people about mental health. But where the
Hmm.
changes lie is that at a certain point, you no longer want to be just the educator. Like I think that will always be my
Hmm.
baseline. And I will love to support, I will continue to support, but how do I now show the artists that I've always known that I've been? In what avenues am I going to do that? So, that's where the changes are coming in. Even I don't always
Hmm.
know. Like that might be like stopping the TikTok for a little bit. That might be podcasts. That might be, personal projects of my own. And so I'm
Hmm.
still exploring that right now.
So yeah, you're just in that state of exploration, trying to
Hmm.
figure out. Do you like have any like? Because you said you realized you kind of gave up
Yeah.
the like your interest in all this creative stuff to focus on the degree and all that. Did you have like things you were already doing at one point that you gave up, or are you just talking about like just the idea of being creative? You kind of had to give up.
It was a little bit of both. I think at first I was like a big athlete, like as a kid all the way through high
Mm-hmm.
school. And for me, there's something about like physical energy that does feel very creative. And I'm sure like a lot of like semi-pro, pro, even like collegiate athletes would say the same.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
right.
I
So
played basketball my whole life, so I definitely
right.
get what you're saying for
Right.
sure.
And so it never
Mm-hmm.
leaves you, and like the part of your brain that you use to play, to think, to strategize like is incredibly creative. So I did tennis from like 6 to 18. That
Oh
was
wow.
my
Okay.
entire life. And then I also ran track through high school. And so that was like one way for me to be creative. But when I got to college, I was like, guess we just got to focus on academics. Like, I'm clearly not going to join the team. I don't really understand what
Mm-hmm.
intramural is, like when you're in a new setting like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
how do you make time for clubs? I just only knew how to make time for my education because that's what my parents were focused on. But also, like the more like way of describing creativity, I loved to write. I was writing short stories, poetry
Love that.
all day, every day. I was taking creative writing classes in school. Um, I was writing poetry for myself, for my little
Mm-hmm.
boyfriends in high
For
school. You know
sure.
what I mean? And so I really enjoyed that. But something about college and just
Mm-hmm.
focusing on like achieving made it so that I put all those things to the side. And then at a certain point, it was just hard to
Mm.
understand why it was important to maintain that, right? So if I couldn't justify making time to, you know, write, draw for fun,
Gotcha.
play a sport, run outside, I wouldn't do it. And then I would just focus my energy on education or, probably doing
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And also the perfectionism would set in too, right? Because if you lose those skills and you want to get back into them and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, my body doesn't move the way it used to, like, or, I'm not thinking the way I did at 15 years old, my poetry, like, or my creative writing, my short stories. Where do you start? Is it okay to start from
Yeah.
scratch? Like, this feels ugly. This sounds ugly. I don't know where my inspiration is. And so there was a lot of barriers there. So I think at a certain point it's a mix of both because when you get back to square one, you don't know how to allow yourself to just continue and flourish. Not the way that you did when you were like a teen and a kid, where there were like no inhibitions,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So like what would you say is like holding you back from, at least just starting like one of these things? Like what's the resistance with that?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love the diving deep questions here. I think now it's a little bit easier. I have to do a lot of personal work to be like, be a beginner, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
B stands for bad, and no one has to see it,
Okay, okay,
you
okay.
know,
All
right?
right.
So the B
Mm-hmm.
stands for bad. Like, it's going to be bad. It's supposed to be bad until you work it around and it feels like it's getting better, or you look at it with a new pair of eyes and it was actually fine the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't I don't like to be bad at stuff. No one does.
Yeah.
No one does. Like, I've started to just like as I'm out and about, just like open up my notes app, and if I feel a little inspired, just like jot a little thing down, or like, get
Mm-hmm.
on my laptop and just like say a couple words into the mic, just,
Yeah.
and put it there, or like grab the DJ controller and just like touch it. You know what I mean? So
No, I totally get it.
yeah.
There was like a I'm trying to remember the title of the book because I graduated with a creative writing degree.
Oh.
Um, and so I'm trying to remember the name of the book.
Mhm.
Oh, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Oh.
There's a chapter in there, and it's called "Shitty First Drafts," and it's about allowing yourself to be terrible. Like the
Yeah.
first time you write something, it's going to be bad, and like
Yeah.
that's what editing is for. Like
Yes.
that's why it's there. And I remember, so that was like one of my very first. That was like my intro to creative writing class, where
Mm,
my professor made us read that. And I feel like if I didn't read that, my whole entire college like career with writing would have been horrible
yeah.
because I was definitely before reading that, I was definitely like a perfectionist with my writing.
Yeah.
But then after reading that, I was like, okay, yeah, like let me just like it was almost like stream of consciousness after that. And
Yeah.
then I took a lot more time in the editing process to like figure it all out and make it better.
Mm.
On the writing side of what you're talking about, I get it like a thousand percent.
Mhm.
It could definitely be really terrifying to sit down in front of a blank page.
Oh,
Like
yes.
it's scary.
Right. It's like that
It's
SpongeBob
scary.
episode. I know he was, like, procrastinating too, right? And all he's got on
Hmm.
that one
Oh
page is
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a very memorable thing, 'cause I
Yeah, it
felt that
is.
way. But no, you're right, and, like, I think it's super dope that you kinda went to school for that, and I'm definitely gonna ask you questions about that after. I'm not gonna
Let's do it now.
turn the tables on you. Well, like,
We can do it.
how
It's
did
a
you get
combo.
into that? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so honestly, like it is a wonderful story.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I was playing basketball my whole life, but I have health issues. I have cystic fibrosis, which
Okay.
is like a genetic disorder I was born with.
Mhm.
And so what happened was it was like my sophomore year of high school. I dislocated my shoulder. I was out for like 9 months, and I tried to come like right back because tryouts were like for my junior year were about to happen.
Wow.
But like mixed with my health issues, like it just I wasn't in shape and all this kind of stuff. And then I got mono,
Oh,
and then that just like once again because of my other health issues, I got like really,
right.
really,
It's
really
gonna take
sick.
you out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like for like 2 years after that, I missed like more than half a year of school every single year. Like I was
Wow.
out of it.
Oh my gosh.
But during that, like kind of like you're talking about right now, like with the journey you're in, trying to figure out a form of expression or like what to do. And I love video games.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to my brother's friend, and he was just like, because I was talking about the story of this game I like. He's like, why don't you write like a story, like write a video game? And I was like, I can do that now. Like I'm only
Mm.
like 15. Like that's something I can do. And he's like, yeah, just like do it for fun. And I was like, okay. And so over a summer, I just like knocked out my first novel. And I was like, oh, this is
You
fun.
said that
Like
so casually. A whole summer, just
I
knocked out a novel. Are you serious?
right? It was crazy. Like actually, the story that's crazy too, because I was like writing it little by little, and then I shit you not, like I went to bed and I had a dream of how my book ended. Like I saw like the whole thing, and then I like wrote the rest of it in like a couple days because like it was like I knew exactly where I was going with it.
Wow.
That's like one of the biggest moments of inspiration I've ever had in my life. It was really cool.
Wow.
And then I get to college, and my oldest brother, he is just a genius, and like he went to Duke, and I felt a lot of pressure from that. And then my middle brother, there's three of us. My middle brother, he's also like an academic genius, and he like what did he major in? Like some type of physics, something,
Wow.
something. And then I'm over here. I hate school. You know what I'm saying? I don't like academics. Um, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I just did like the typical, stereotypical like business major
Yeah.
thing. And then I hated it. And like I wanted to drop out and everything like that. And then my middle brother was like, don't you like writing? I was like, yeah, I love it. And then he was like, "Well, they usually have like writing tracks." And I was like, "For real? Like that's the thing?" I didn't even know like in college you like there was writing degrees. I had no idea.
Mm,
And then so I looked into it and I looked at like the courses it would take to graduate, and I was like, like there was like script writing, video game writing, like all this kind of stuff. I was like,
wow.
I'm definitely going to do that. So shout out to my brother and his friend. They definitely
Amazing.
put me on that track.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it so
Oh
much. And
man.
just like you, I was writing poetry. I did spoken word
Ugh,
poetry for a
I
long
wanted to do that
time.
so bad growing up.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was like watching, I forget what it was like. Um, was it Def
on
Jam
YouTube or
Poetry? Like growing up, that
oh,
was like a
okay,
long
yeah,
time ago. I don't know if that's me dating
yeah,
myself, but like those are some really memorable moments of being like, look at the way like folks can really express themselves, like
hmm
through like just spoken word. Ugh, it was so good.
yeah. No, their Def Jam poetry is really
Yeah.
good, and I know Kanye's gone off the rocker, but I
Mm.
always think back to Kanye. Did he do "All Falls Down" as a poem first? I think he did,
Oh,
and that was like really cool. And then it became like the song later, but like him doing it like as a poem on stage was so
that's
fire.
dope.
But
I
Kanye,
know. Keeping our fingers crossed
you
for
know
Kanye.
I don't know if this is completely switching
Not
topics,
if
but I gotta ask you because
yes.
I think it was actually your most recent TikTok.
Oh.
I think it was. You were talking about like separating the art from the artist, right? And I just said Kanye, so
Yeah.
I feel like it's a good transition.
Listen, it's
I
great. I was a big Kanye fan, like in the
mm-hmm.
like mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s. Like I've seen him in concert. Me and my best guy friend like still talk about him to this day. So
Yeah.
feel free. Let's.
It's hard not
It's
to.
hard.
It's hard not
It's
to.
hard. Let's get into
So, okay, so all right, I'll start with kind of my opinion real
it.
quick.
Sure.
So, I don't have like a black and white thinking on this. Like I feel like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, and it actually has nothing to do with how much I like an artist or not. Like, and I think it also depends on like the genre we're talking about.
Mhm.
Like with writing, I don't equate like J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. Like I see it so different. Like I don't equate Tolkien with Lord of the Rings. I don't
Ooh,
equate Dr. Seuss with his books. Like it's like this like own separate thing. But then at
mhm.
the same time, like with music, it feels much more connected to me.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like it depends, and like same thing with movies. Like there's like things where it's like clearly racist people have made this movie or made this book or like
Hold on.
whatever. But
So
it's
gotta
like,
put these back on.
oh my
No,
bad.
you're good.
I said like there's like clearly racist
Oh
people
yeah.
that make books and movies
Oh
and
yeah.
this and that, and like I still enjoy them, but then sometimes I don't because it is. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm very. I
Okay.
don't know if I'm hypocritical or if I just have. I don't know.
Well, we
I don't
just
know.
talked about, like your journey with writing, and I
hmm
know like on your TikTok for sure, like you spend a lot of time talking about music. So to you, do
hmm
you have like I don't want to say a stronger connection, but like a different connection to music than you do to writing versus video games versus, XYZ because that might play into it a little bit.
I think so. I have this thing where I kind of believe like when an artist makes something, it like goes out into the world and it's like owned by the people. But I think it also especially like when a world is created, like say
Mhm.
something like Lord of the Rings, right?
Mm,
Like Tolkien's dead. Lord of the Rings is still going
yeah,
on. It's being created by other people. So like the idea has been like transferred.
for
Like
sure.
his hands aren't even on it
For
anymore.
sure.
So it's like how can I not separate the art from the artist in that? Like it's not even his art anymore. Like it's his
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So like but then music feels more nonfiction, even
Okay.
though that's not really true. Like sometimes you got writers or whoever and
Yeah.
it's not actually your thoughts. So it's
Yeah.
like it feels like a very nuanced thing that people want people to pick a side on. And I've never been able to. I've never been able to
Mm.
say I think this is morally better than this, or like I just haven't. I'm like very on the fence about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of makes me feel bad.
I mean, I
Like,
think it's really
yeah.
interesting, and I think you're posing some really fascinating points. I think I've struggled with this a large portion of my life, and unfortunately, I'm gonna take that word back. I don't know if it's unfortunate. I
Okay.
think what ends up happening is that, like, because things in our world are inherently political, it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think about how art is tied to aspects of liberation, whether or not you like intend for it to,
For sure.
right?
And I get that point too, 100%.
Right. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, like, when I think about like folks who used to be my faves that aren't my faves, whose behavior, and it for me it ends up being like a behavior thing. Like if the behavior isn't something that I would do or I wouldn't allow to have happen to me, then I start
Mm-hmm.
to have questions of, ooh, like, what do I look like dancing to that in the club? You know what I mean? And so it
Gotcha.
makes me feel, I know for me, and maybe also as a woman, it makes me feel a little like icky. And it doesn't always have to be about something that happens to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the more you learn about the artist, the more you think about how they come to create what they create. And even
For
then,
sure.
we're not even fully sure, right? Because you're talking about ghostwriters, like we're talking about folks who want to maintain their celebrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maintain that money and will do and say what they need to do. And so it gets really blurry and mucky, right? But I think it there is a hypocritical like nature that does come to play, but I think it has
Mm-hmm.
more to do with like in whose shoes would you be in, like if the situation, the things you know about the artist or the things you're hearing in the lyrics or in the
Mm-hmm.
writing like would happen to you, could you hold both of that at the same time?
It's like I feel like everybody, like realistically, it seems like everybody has their different boundaries of when they would cut,
I think
like
so.
stop listening or
I
participating
think
in the
so.
art. Like I've always felt like, and I like if you could speak to this,
Hmm.
I always felt like as like a woman, you'd have to have a level of like dissociation in a sense to like enjoy hip hop.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in that? Like I feel
Yeah.
because it's very misogynistic a lot of the time.
Hmm.
So like, is that I don't like I don't want to speak for you or like speak for women or anything, but like, is that like something that you feel like you do, or is it?
It's a great question, and
Mm-hmm.
I cannot speak for all women. I will not speak for
Mm-hmm.
all women in this situation, and I'll speak for myself. I think, and I've had plenty of people, especially men, ask me that question. I think
Mm-hmm.
it is hard because it's like it's what sells and it's what's the norm, not just in
Mm-hmm.
like hip hop, for example, but it's in lots of other music and it's also in
For
our
sure.
world, And so there are moments where it's like you do turn it off, or like I know that sometimes there are lyrics where I'm like, I didn't even know that was about violence. Like I didn't even know that was about
Mm.
drugs. I didn't know that was about women. And then I'm like, oh, like I wish that it were different. And then I know there are moments where I'm like, okay, that was that lyric, turn up.
Mhm.
Right? Like
Yeah. For sure.
it is really really hard, and I do appreciate the artists that like have found a way to like uh bring up our people, right, and
Mm-hmm.
just highlight them and make them feel as beautiful and as strong, as handsome as they are meant to be in this world. And I do personally wish that there is more of that, right? And
Yeah.
but that at the end of the day, like I love that question, and I still think it's a group effort, like across genders, across ethnicity and race, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
would love for that to be different, but I also know what it would take, and it would have less to do with me, as a
Mm.
woman to go ahead and change that,
For
you
sure.
know? Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do you think like kind of going back to the whole um separating art from the artist?
Mhm.
So I mean, what would you say? I don't even know.
Mhm.
I guess like I'm looking for some type of answer because I really do feel bad being on the fence about it because when it comes to all of the social aspects of if I'm buying this thing, I'm supporting this, cause, this terrible cause from like an artist or whoever, or supporting them and like we should be boycotting them and things like that. And like I totally understand that like a million percent. And then people always say like, "Oh, well, just like illegally stream this or pirate that or like whatever is a way to get around like the capitalistic nature of supporting them." I get that too.
Mhm.
And then I feel like as an artist, I also I feel like that's why I feel like the art is separate, which is kind of interesting because I don't know. I have so many different thoughts about it. I have no idea.
I think to stratify all these topics is really difficult. Like this would
Hmm.
have to be like a series you'd need to start in order to answer
You're
that.
right about
And
that.
I'll also say like I don't know if I have the full answer, but I will say, like, you are talking about capitalism, right? And we know that
Mhm.
sometimes art falls under capitalism as well,
Mhm.
right? And which again, like, it's under a political umbrella. And so a lot of what I talk about on my TikTok and probably just in mental health in general is about like your values. Like, are you living
Mhm.
within those values? And so it's not just like what you do, but it also is what you consume, what you share with other people, what you don't share with other people, like most you speak up
Mhm.
and when you don't. And so sometimes I think it really is just a matter of like taking a step back, laying it all on the table and just assessing, like, all right, maybe I have this whole cloud of things that I'm like, these are the things that I believe in, but these other
Mhm.
things, they don't fit, right? And so is that about a value of your own personal pleasure? Is that a value of like the person who creates the thing? Is that the value of like your sense of self? And are those in alignment with these things that you've already determined are your true values and likely will not change? Right. And so if
Mm.
there's a bit of a dissonance there, like, what would you need to do to rectify it? And if it had to be something
Mm.
uncomfortable, like no longer listening to an artist or a piece of writing or whatever, like, can you sit with that discomfort and be like, damn, like, I can't believe I got to do that. I can't believe I can't listen to
Ah, it's
XYZ
interesting.
person anymore.
Mhm.
Like, because again, like, art is as received as the audience is a usually a pleasurable thing, and we don't want
Mhm.
to get rid of that. That's why we, again, I think I did a video on this recently, I don't remember the last couple of days, of like, it stinks to have to walk away from those feelings of like, I really like and enjoy this thing, you
Mhm.
know um but again,
For sure, it
yeah,
does. It's definitely painful, especially if it's like someone you've been,
rocking with.
engaging with for
Mhm.
forever, you know?
Mhm.
But when you're talking about the value thing, like I'm just gonna put vulnerable here.
Yeah.
So like when I was in therapy, I realized like I was in this phase of trying to actually define what my values were because I feel like I was picking up values from so many other places that like weren't actually my own,
Mm.
whether that was like family or ever since I've been a content creator and I'm like on the internet all the time,
Mhm.
I feel like I'll pick things up from like social media and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so I was trying to find like, okay, like what is it that like I stand for or I want to stand for? What is it that like is this value really mine or like do I take it away? Do I switch it to something else? And so I feel like I'm still in that process. Like it's taking me a really long time. And like I guess my question for you with that would be like, how do you feel like people can come up with their own values? How do people decide what's genuinely theirs or something that was kind of implanted from somewhere else, from their childhood, whatever? Like,
Mhm.
how do you decide what's like authentically you when it
Yeah.
comes to values?
Ooh, I love this question. Great question.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so the first thing to do is sit with yourself,
Hmm.
right? Because again, like, you're talking about all of the influences that you receive from other people, from other places, social media. And sometimes we have to take some time out to cut the noise to know how we really feel about something, because it is very easy for society to like intentionally, unintentionally dictate what we want. And then I'm very big on like challenging societal norms in order to determine your values. Excuse me. And I realize that challenging your societal norms is a very, very hard thing to do. Everybody wants to stay in line and do what everyone else does because it's just easier to go ahead and do, right? It just makes life smoother. But that doesn't mean you are living
Hmm.
within those values. So sometimes I like to make a chart, right? So, say for example, you're approaching 30, right? Like, that's a big one I like to use. Approaching 30, I got to get
Hmm.
married, got to get the house, got to get the solid job, X, Y, and Z, right? First things I want to know is that what you want, right? Is that what you want? Like, and write down like
Hmm.
all of those things. Who is saying that? Is it you or is it someone else? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if it's for someone else. It's just Does it matter to you? And can you determine why? And would it make you
Okay.
happy to go ahead and like pursue that thing? If you say, yes, that's important to me, and the societal norm and your norm are the same, okay, cool, no problem. If you're like, oh, like my family's pressuring me to do this, I feel like, I'm not going to amount to anything. And if I see everybody else go ahead and do this, like, I'm not going to feel good about myself. That sounds like it's not your value,
Yeah.
right? And it sounds like you're going to have
Okay.
to find a way to put that to the side and approach your goals and values the way that you want to. And also remember that folks are going to have questions, and most of their questions are going to be projection. Aren't you worried that? Are you concerned
Mm,
that? What if you never, blah, blah, blah? If those questions aren't coming from you, right? And they've never crossed your mind, you can
mm-hmm.
guarantee it's projection because that was the thing that they were worried about.
Facts.
Yeah.
You know, I hate how when I just don't like how this is a part of life. Like when you make a change, like you're it's inherent that you're gonna feel friction kind of like all around you in different places. Cause you set your life up this way, people expect certain things, and then you make that switch and you're gonna have like that resistance. I feel like that moment of time is hard to get through sometimes.
Mm,
Like because you can't control how other people are gonna be like you're saying, like they're projecting on you,
yeah.
and everything like that. That's always kind of a hard season for me to go through. Like even right now with this podcast, like it's something completely different from the other content I've been doing,
Hmm.
and there's like a lot of resistance
Mm.
um within my community with it and things like that.
Oh,
But it's something that it's like I gotta do. Like I love to do it. Like this feels so much better to me than what I was doing before.
yeah.
But yeah, those moments they're tough.
Hmm.
They're tough.
Oh yeah, they're it is not easy. And I will say, as the therapist, to have to tell somebody those
Yeah.
type of things, like I can't say I don't relish it because I also know, like in my personal life, when I deal with it, I'm like, damn, like I don't want to have to sit with that discomfort. I don't want to have to sit with
Hmm.
that frustration. But I resonate with you. Like, first of all, I think it's really dope, very brave to take a step and do what you want to do, right?
Thank you.
Especially with like I this maybe I don't want to put this on you, but I know this is how I feel. Like once I got on TikTok, I was like, oh, I need to stay in my lane. I need to stay in
Yeah.
my lane on TikTok. I shouldn't change topics. I shouldn't ever leave the app. Like I would be like everybody else if I did X, Y, and Z, the Substacks, the podcast.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, no. Right. And like I'm sorry you also got some like
Hmm.
resistance from other people, but I will also say screw other people. Like you at least trying it out and seeing how it goes is the best thing you can do. You can at
Hmm.
least say you tried and you like enjoyed yourself, enjoyed the process. Maybe there were parts that were frustrating too, but that's for you to have to navigate because there's something inside of you telling you that.
For sure.
And I feel that way myself again, like with the changes that I'm thinking about making, because sometimes like content can feel stale. Like I feel like the TikTok algorithm changes all the time. What they
It
want
really
us to
does.
put out all the
For
time
sure.
is very frustrating. Like a lot of videos of mine that I have substance won't be seen, and I've come to terms with that. But I know for sure all I have to say is, you know, something like you don't want to hear this, but as the minute I say that, boom, numbers. I could say
Yep.
anything behind,
Yep.
and that feels frustratingly inauthentic, right? And so in order for me to
Yeah.
stay and continue to do something that I
Yeah.
like, I have to make sure I do it my way, right?
You
Regardless of what
know,
anyone says.
it's just so true. The whole content creation like job is so funny because I feel like if you do have like morals,
Mhm.
it's really hard to break into the industry because like with the algorithm and everything you're talking about, like it would be so easy to like do really good at this job by doing all the things like like just like being negative,
Mhm.
doing the posts that get people angry, like all those things, like they'll do numbers
Yeah.
like 100%.
Yeah.
Because the all of the platforms just want you to bring people on the platform
Mhm.
and to stay on the platform. So if you get people arguing in your comments, that always helps out. You get people stitching your
Yeah.
video, disagreeing with you. Like the whole shits and giggles thing, right? That's going on. It's like they were already big. They already had like millions of followers or whatever. But it's like I didn't even know other people really knew who they were, and now they're like everywhere. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And at the end of it all, like they're gonna be bigger after this.
Mm. We'll see. I don't
And
know.
like I like it's just that seems to be what happens like with any type of this like TikTok controversy. Although sometimes like if it's really bad, like yeah, like people fall off a lot. But I don't know. Like it just it sucks that that's what's I guess incentivized. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah.
it's bad that I just don't like that that's what's incentivized.
Uh,
The all the like
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
negativity, anger is what really goes around.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah. I'm with you too. I think I make it a point if I don't have anything of value for me to say, I'm not
Hmm.
going to say it. I will risk the algorithm forgetting about me in order to make sure that I am creating content that I feel really good about.
I love that.
It is the only way that I can maintain, like, again, like the artistry and the creativity of what matters to me and what means the most to me. Because if I push through that, then I am thinking about my following count. I am thinking about the views. I am thinking about, like, excuse me, how to get everybody's attention. And that's just,
Hmm.
it was never important to me to begin with. I understand what
Hmm.
I've gained again from, like, you know, having other people follow me and comment, but I'm also I'm a happy person. I don't
Yeah,
want to talk about unhappy things. Like, if I feel
for
strongly
sure.
about something, you will sense an emotion out of me. Like, I'm not trying to say
Hmm.
anger is bad. Sometimes you got to put it out there, but I don't think I want to feed into content simply to be seen. And if that means that it impacts how I put my videos out and, portray, anger, negativity, things that aren't authentic to me in the moment, I'm not going to do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's like the most important part, honestly. Like not getting too caught up in like the job part of it all.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, like I can tell by your content that that's the vibes I get from your content that like what you're putting out is important to you.
Yeah.
It has value.
Thank you.
It's deep. It's insightful.
Thank you.
Um, and like I was actually gonna ask you that too. Like when it comes to like you have like a lot of insights.
Oh.
Are these things that pop up from kind of just like you're saying, like kind of like sitting with yourself, giving yourself time, like it just pops in your head?
Mhm.
Or like is it from things you consume, books, media, like anything like that, a combination of both?
Yeah.
Like how do you come up with this stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, so the first person that comes to mind is my cousin. My
Mm-hmm.
cousin, I lived with her for the last 4 years in the DMV area, and that's who I spent the pandemic with. And
Mm-hmm.
we have similar values and ways in thinking about the world from, like, a sociocultural standpoint and lots of other standpoints. And so, really, like, if I ever really want to do a podcast, Kirsty, if you're listening to this, like, I've said this to you before, so just think about it. Like, I would do one with her because it is just so natural to talk about so many different things. And so, on the days where I'm, like, frustrated about the trajectory of where things are going for me, or maybe I saw something
Mm-hmm.
on social media, the first thing I'm doing is knock, 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 knocking on her door right next door and just
Mm-hmm.
being like, girl, what do you think
Yeah.
about this? And then we would just talk until we were tired of talking, and then I'd leave
Yeah.
her room. And so, it was sometimes like things that we just talked about, and I was like, oh man, like, talking to you helped me realize this, and so I appreciate you for that. And then I'd put that on the world. But other times it was just me deep in my thoughts. Like, I've been
Okay.
thinking about this for a really long time. I'm mulling on it. I'm mulling on it. And if I'm mulling on it a long time, I probably am like, oh, do other people feel the same way? And instead of waiting for
Mm-hmm.
someone to validate me before I put it out there, I just say it. I don't ever know. I never know
Oh wow.
if
Okay.
folks are going
Okay.
to resonate with what I say. I really, really don't. But I just try to put, like, my honesty and my confidence out there. I will say there was a time in, like, 2022, part of 2023, where I thought that the content on social media was really, really interesting in regards to COVID, in regards to stuff going on in the world, social stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I was like, oh, I'm happy to be part of those conversations. Like, these are my opinions on that. Sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
agreed, sometimes I wanted to add stuff, sometimes I was frustrated. So I think it's a little bit of everything, but I think the ones that resonate the most are, like, the ones that come from myself and my own internal dialogue, but also, like,
Mm-hmm.
dialogue from people that I care about, and, have values in alignment with me and we're willing to kind of just have those conversations.
It's beautiful that you're saying that you get these insights from dialogue because I feel it's a lost art. And I'm being for real. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like most dialogue that happens with people now is very contentious.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of like just in the world we're living in, always, especially in an election year. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Election years are always
Yep.
everybody at each other's throats.
Hmm.
And so, this idea of dialogue and getting great insights and ideas and like that, exploration and that activity, I love that. That reminds me of like my roommate from college. We would do that all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, that's amazing. Uh, and like when you're sitting, okay, another question with the idea. So, like when you're sitting with yourself,
Yes.
I feel like I get a lot of insights with that as well. However, sometimes I feel like I'm searching, searching, searching for an answer to the point of frustration. Do you ever feel
Yeah.
like you do that, or do you like allow the answer to come to you, or are you like the one searching for it?
Oof. If I'm I'm thinking about all the tough times I had with my own thoughts and oh my gosh. Okay, so I think it varies. I think I've had a little bit of
Hmm.
everything. There are moments where it just like pops and I'm like, "Oh,
Hmm.
that's fascinating. Like how'd I put that together? Okay,
Yeah.
like let's go. Like let's keep thinking about that." There are other times where I know like maybe I'm at like a crossroads in the moment about
Hmm.
something. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking about creativity and where things go next. I know for me, that's usually like a big stopping point. And so I do get frustrated when I can't move forward. I can't get that answer because I'm like, I would love it because I want to move on. Right. And it's kind
Hmm.
of like that magic 8 ball. And I forget the little answer it gives where it's basically not going to give you an answer. Just like
Yeah,
try
yeah.
again or like come back later or
Hmm.
whatever. And I'm like, okay. So something about this, I'm meant to continue to sit within the world. And sometimes I never get the answer.
I
I
know.
never get
Yeah.
it. And it's
It's
like,
the worst.
yeah. And it's like, okay, it's like the, I don't know, ninth wonder of the world or something. And I don't know. Yeah, it really depends. There are just things that maybe are meant to be unanswered and
It's the
frustrating,
worst.
isn't it? And I think as humans, somehow
It's the worst.
we've determined that as humans, because we have these brains that can think that we're supposed to be able to get from point A to point B. I actually don't know if that's the case.
It's probably not.
Probably not.
You know, there's always supposed to be an unknown because I feel like we're also naturally
Yeah.
curious and
Yeah.
like there's no end to information. Like we're always not gonna know something.
Hmm.
And it's like I get that on a logical level, but I hate it in my body. Like it doesn't feel good. I
No,
don't like it.
no, not at all. I don't like it either.
I want all the
I want all
answers.
the answers. I'd love them now so I could do exactly what I want to do.
Facts. I seem to have this process like that. I've just like I'm 30 now.
Hmm.
I feel like it's just something that it just happens over and over and over again. So like what happens is I'll be thinking about something like really hard and then I notice like if I let it go, I'll eventually get the answer when I least expect it when I'm not doing something like mind intensive. Like if I'm in the shower or if I'm driving
Hmm.
or playing a video game or something like where my mind is kind of like, just not really active. And it happens over and over and over again. So like I always have to get to the point though to remind myself to like let go
Mm.
and like the answer will come to me. But I always forget to let go because I get like so wrapped up in trying to figure out the answer. I don't know if that's probably my perfectionism, honestly. It's gotta
It's
be.
super common, and it could be perfectionism. There's a term in this like modality of therapy called ACT. I
Hmm.
know there's some people familiar with it. It's basically acceptance and commitment therapy. It's where all the mindfulness comes from, all the
Hmm.
values based stuff comes from. There's a term, and because I'm in the field, I'm like, whoever's listening, if I know the guy that still created it is still in existence, I'm not going to get it
Hmm.
completely right. This is my own version of it. There's this idea called fusion,
Okay.
where essentially, like, they use this example of like taking a clipboard and like having it close to your face. Like, okay, if you have the clipboard in front of your face, like all you can think about is that
True.
clipboard. But there's so many other things going on out in the world, right? And so you're too fused to the thing that's happening in
Mm,
front of you. If you pull the clipboard as far as your arms can go, right? And you keep pushing, 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 you're still like having to deal with that clipboard again while the rest of the world is living and happening within
Mm-hmm.
you in the moment. And so I think this connects really well to the thought to like what you're talking about of trying to, make sense of getting the answer to your thoughts, because we just think if we work,
Mm-hmm.
fix, fix, fix hard enough, we can like do it and take care of it. But the opposite of fusion is
Mm-hmm.
diffusion in this case, which is really just to kind of like acknowledge that the
Mm-hmm.
thought is there and to continue to be present, because that's where you live within
Mm.
your values. And I think that still works in this case, because if you know, like, okay, the question's there, who knows how it's going to get answered? And you
Uh-huh.
live your daily life, like take a shower, like go hang out with
Mm-hmm.
friends and all those things. Like you now have opened up so many different opportunities to see the ways in which that question will get answered, right?
Mm.
Act.
Okay. Okay.
Fusion and diffusion.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. It's really
Now I'm deep in
interesting.
thought.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now you're present with all these thoughts that you have.
That's wow.
Hmm.
So like, all right, let's like your content. Let's mix this mental health thing with art real quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever like what are some movies or music or
Oof.
something like that like spark that inspiration? Or have you ever watched or listened to something that has given you like some amazing epiphany or answer about something?
Wow, that's great. Ugh. I, my first answer wants to be like, no, that's never
Mm-hmm.
happened. But I think that's because like my interest in like music and movies like span so far. I am a big music person. So
Okay.
um I'm trying to think if there's maybe a particular genre. I think what ends up happening for me is that when I find an artist or a particular song that like hits me, I
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time thinking about the area in which I would be listening to that song outside of where I am now. So say I'm like going for a walk and I'm listening to like by far my favorite Kate Renata song, Free Fall, like with Duran Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
I love, love, love that song. I can imagine like the synesthesia in me like just like comes out, right? Like it's
Okay.
the colors
Oh
mean
wow.
things, like I'm in a different zone. There are people around, we're interacting, we are vibing. I'm on a different planet, right? And so what
Mm-hmm.
I find is that like sitting with the feeling of how good that is to have like
Mm-hmm.
to do that then kind of inspires me to I can't say it inspires me to do anything in particular, but like I
Mm-hmm.
can lean into that energy when I want to feel inspired.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I've never heard that before. That's
yeah,
interesting.
I think it's quite
Yeah.
unique. I've explained it to others, and they're like, "That's not what happens to me."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it spans across genres. So like, it could be like music like Kate Renata. It can be like indie. It can be soundtrack music. It can
Mhm.
also depend on the environment that I'm in. Um, and then my brain will just kind of like like go to a completely different place, different
Mhm.
scenario. There are other times where like I'm listening to a song and I'm like, I don't even know what the music video is, but I can see it in my head. Like I can see what I would make of
Like
that,
what you would
what
do?
I would do in that moment. And
Interesting.
I'm like, oh, I wish I had like the skills to be able to do that or the means to like direct some
Mhm.
music videos. I think that would be so dope. Um,
That would be.
yeah, right. But like, it really depends. It depends on the day, the mood, and I never have any idea where it's going to take me. But I have learned that the feeling and the energy that comes from that is something I need to hold on to and
Mhm.
and almost kind of like manifest a little bit. Like it helps you manifest the energy that I want in order to do whatever I want to do.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing way to like interact with music.
Yeah.
For real.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Also like using it as a tool. So let me just process what you said at
Sure.
the
Sure.
very end there. You use the music
Mhm.
as a tool to feel the energy, to manifest that same energy just like in your life, period.
Yes. So I did a video on this a couple months ago where I realized that part of the reason why I struggle with getting my creativity started is that I was just never in like the energy mindset to go and
Mm.
do that. So what I did was
Okay.
I made a little playlist, maybe like 20, 30 songs of the songs I was listening to at the moment that made me feel hype, right? And so
Okay.
when it made me feel hype, I thought about like what I was doing, who I was with,
Mhm.
what I was dressed in, and it had nothing to do with creativity. It had more to do with
Huh.
where I wanted to live, which is where I live now,
Huh.
right?
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
realized if I do that and I hold on to that energy, like that excitement that I feel when I'm imagining this, when I'm listening to, 24K, or if I'm listening to Strike by Little Monarch, or if I'm listening to like
Mhm.
whomever, right? I take that feeling and I go out into the world and I use that feeling to just go do my daily stuff. Who
Mhm.
knows what's going to happen? Cool things can happen. I've met cool people from there. I've moved.
Huh.
I can't say that that's really what has happened, but there was a stark change for me when I realized like I need that kickstart. So I just have like a hyping myself up playlist on Spotify to
You
like make that
know,
happen.
I have no idea if there's a connection here, but it sounds so similar. I just got to bring it up.
Yeah.
So it sounds almost like there's like this you're living in the music, like
Yeah.
almost like a transformation, kind of like because the music is the energy, it's the
Mhm.
it's the waves and the frequencies, and it's almost like you're becoming one with them, right?
Yeah.
And what's really wild with that is that do you listen to Kendrick Lamar at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so his album Damn
Mhm.
is essentially that concept. This idea that like he's not an artist. Like he's like not like Kendrick Lamar. Like he's his energy in the music. Like he is the sound,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know, that's just what like even in that music video where like his face turns into like Will Smith and
Mhm. Yeah.
Kanye and Nipsey and all that, it's like he has this like transformation thing he does where he like becomes the music he's trying to create.
Yeah.
And like he raps about that process. And it's like this is giving me that, but instead of you making a song about it, you're like making your life with it.
Yeah, and who knows then if I will eventually
That's
make a song about it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like a level of I don't know, that sounds like some like spiritual um just like super genuine authenticity with that. Like
Yeah.
you're so in tune with I mean, that's literally what they talk about, like with manifestation, like you're saying,
Yeah.
like getting so in tune with that energy, like you can go like recreate it places. And
This
it's like, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah. I think I
Yeah.
remember watching some of those manifestation videos on TikTok and I was like, I don't get it. Like it's not that I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe it. I don't think I understand the concept. And so when I made the connection for me with
Mm-hmm.
music, I was like, oh, this is different. And when you say spiritual, I think it is for me truly like I have folks in my family who like were in music, in like radio, and I didn't
Okay.
know like until like those folks like passed away or I was like,
Oh
just
wow.
like later in age. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
thought about my interest in music and how like excited I would get, like how I think about music, everyone makes comments on like um when I think about a song, I'm very quick to tell you what year it came out.
Oh wow.
It's just like a quick thing.
Trivia thing. Okay.
Sometimes like 2010 to 2013 will get me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
especially with hip hop. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, but I'm close. I'm usually like off by like a year or so. But so there's a deep connection that I've had, and I think for me, it's like it's familial, it's ancestral, and I
Mm.
think that's really cool. And so there's a part of me that is just really trying to connect to it, which is why I need to get past the point of just pressing random buttons on my DJ controller and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Are you trying like with music, are you trying to do like the whole process as far as like production, writing,
I've looked
vocals?
into
Like
it.
is that what you're trying to do?
I've
Or
looked
like
into it.
you okay.
Yeah. A
Okay.
couple months ago, I don't know, it was probably some ad, and, it was like a
Mhm.
free thing of like intro to music production. And so they walked us through the different stages of like, the
Mhm.
recording and the editing and sort of like, adjusting the quality of the music. And I was
Mhm.
so deeply fascinated by it. And I was like,
It's a lot.
it is a lot of work.
It's a
It's a
lot.
lot of work. And I would love to check it out. I don't know how I feel about like me singing. Like my voice is
Mhm.
fine enough, but I don't know if I feel a
Mhm.
connection to like making music in that way. I think what I feel deeply connected to is recreating the feelings that I have, so other folks can feel
Mhm.
that too.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
yeah.
You know, you can do it. Let me tell you why you can do it. So, in 2020,
Hmm.
right? Quarantine. I had nothing to do. Also, me and my wife, we got married like literally right before
Okay.
the pandemic started. It was that very end of January the 30th,
Uh,
2020.
uh-huh.
So, uh this is a cute story. Everybody always likes this story. So I've been rapping. Like I said, I had been doing poetry and stuff. Before I was doing poetry, I was
Mm.
rapping. Um, and so I had like been in kind of like the music writing thing for a long time. Um, and like I had like mixtapes and all that, and no, the world will never hear them. Uh,
Sometimes it's for you.
and I mean, I put them out there,
Okay.
but I took them all down, and like no one's gonna hear them ever again. Um, but so what happened was before the wedding, while me and my wife were planning it, we could not decide on a song to dance to, like for our first dance.
Mhm.
And I was like, let's make one. And so
Oh.
I had a producer already. And so I was like, all right, let's just, the hook came to me like that. Like it came to me so quick. We're talking like major inspiration. Like I had the hook
I
immediately.
love it.
And then so we were writing in the studio, we made the song. Um, but like, was it before the wedding? It must have been before the wedding. Or did I change it after the wedding? I don't remember. I started to produce. I started to like learn how to like mess with Logic, and mess with the vocals and the beat and all this kind of stuff. And I like got into it and I was making my own beats for a little while. And you could definitely learn it for sure. You
Hmm.
could absolutely do it.
Hmm.
I think it's not to master anything is hard. I
Sure.
think to start it, it's not as hard as you may feel
I
to
believe
like
that.
start it.
I believe
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
completely. Yeah. To
Yeah.
master it, that
Now
sounds
to
like a
master it,
nightmare. I want to try.
yeah, yeah, that's that's a whole nother ball game for
Yeah.
like anything. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, what's that? Do you know that like curve thing when they talk about like starting things? Like you have this like exponential growth,
Hmm.
but then the difference between being good at something and being expert at something is like very marginal, but
Mm.
like it takes a ton of work to like get to that
Ah,
expert level. Like
yeah.
the difference between LeBron
Hmm.
James and the worst person in the NBA actually isn't that big of a jump, but it's just like this incremental growth over time just makes him like the best.
I could see
Like,
that.
and I always thought that was like, I don't know, I always thought that was like a really interesting thing. Like, you can get good at something relatively fast, no matter what it
Hmm.
is. But that little jump of becoming that master is like really hard and takes a lot of
It
time.
does. It's like thinking about
Yeah.
Kobe and like the amount of time we know that like he put in to
Oh
doing the work.
God,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it
Yeah.
like that mentality to choose to go ahead and do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think Questlove talks about that as well. Like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's really
Yeah, like the Kobe thing, his was like more mathematical.
stupid
He
for
was
us.
like, with the whole like, I'm gonna wake up earlier
Right,
than everybody
right.
so I can get
Yeah,
one extra practice a day. But he's like, over 10 years, how many practices is
right.
that? And I was like,
Exactly.
well, mathematically, that
Right.
makes a lot of sense, man,
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and then all right, so we're getting towards the end here. I always ask this question
Okay.
at the
All
end.
right.
What's one belief you have about yourself that you wish other people also had about themselves?
Wow. Prophetic. Oh my goodness. Okay. Um ugh, I have one thing in my head and I'm going to expand on it.
Okay.
You can do it. Like whatever it is, you can probably do it. I think my baseline is like I feel blessed that I have a baseline where I feel confident enough to do most things once. I didn't say
Mm-hmm.
well, right? But
Yeah.
just to do something. And I have so many friends and like clients that are like, I want to, but I'm just like, you can do it. And I just simply mean the doing part. I didn't say
Mm-hmm.
succeed. I didn't say perfect. I just said to do because there is still
Mm-hmm.
so much you can learn from the doing aspect of it all. Life is really, really, really short, and there will be a time where you cannot do. There are societal norms that will tell you that you shouldn't do because you're not good enough. Screw them, right? There are so
Mm-hmm.
many barriers. But again, like sort of what I said earlier, like taking one step to just do something that you say is interesting enough to you opens up
Mm-hmm.
a world of opportunity, a world of understanding about yourself. And that is so deeply, deeply useful. If it takes you to
Mm.
the next step, amazing. Like if you go achieve that thing you want to do, I'm happy for you. But I think we're forgetting about all of the other like horizontal things that just like widen out and open up for you. So you can do it. Like do do that thing.
Wow. I love that because it gets rid of all the expectation,
Exactly.
right? Like it's just doing it to do it.
Yes.
I love
Yeah,
that.
just do it. Why not?
Wow.
One time. Give it a
Wow.
shot. And then what? And then move on to the next thing you got to do.
I love that. You know, that reminds me. Have you seen that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
Oh, that was
Have
a
you ever seen
long,
that?
long time
I
ago.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was like the concept was that like to just say yes to everything,
Yes.
right? And I feel like it yeah, like opened up so much for him. I know it's like a
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
but like that concept, I get like, yeah, if you
Mhm.
just like do it, because I'm a big believer in also like anything that you do
Yeah.
is useful in the sense that yeah, like you get this experience that you like carry with you forever.
Yeah.
Good, bad, whatever. Like you take something from it.
Yeah.
Like some, like you're saying, something will open up for you. Like
Exactly.
something will happen.
Mhm.
So yeah, I love that. I'm gonna take that advice. I
Please
love that.
do. Please
I
do.
love that.
Run with it. Whatever it is that's on your mind, you're like, I got to do it, but I don't know. Just don't worry
Yeah,
about whether or not you know it. Just try it. But you've
I have a
already
lot
done
of
that.
anxiety, and it kind of eases that. That philosophy
Yes.
eases that
Yes.
anxiety up.
Yes. Add some
Yeah.
curiosity to it too. And start
Mm-hmm.
small with that as well. I know that's like a second part, but I also think that helps. I think for me, the way that a good example for me is like if I'm walking somewhere and I don't have a destination, if I see something cool
Mm-hmm.
on the side of the road or like a store that I've never been into before, even if I have no genuine interest,
Mm-hmm.
I'm turning in there. I'm going inside. I'm going inside
Yeah.
just to see because
Oh wow.
what if there's something cool in there? What if it's more boring than I thought? Okay, I learned something, right? So the
Wow.
curiosity is key. Like, don't pick up anything on
Huh.
randomly on the side of the road. Like, be really realistic,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
be curious. Yeah.
Be curious.
Mhm.
Well, I am now. My thoughts are
All
going, but
right.
we're at the end of the episode here.
Mhm.
I just want to say, Tavi, this was an amazing
Yeah,
conversation. I loved it.
me
I loved it.
too.
Um, and like I want to open the floor up for you real quick to promote anything,
Oh
say
yeah.
anything, you know.
Yeah, feel free. Check
Floor
me
is
out
yours.
on TikTok, Tali Dee PhD. I would love to have you there. I love talking to folks in the comments. You will likely see me either on Substack or a podcast at some point coming near you. So just keep your
Hey,
eye out, okay? It really is TBD with me, and that is part of the creativity journey. So if you are a creative
yes,
person, whether you're doing it for the first time, you've never done it before, I'm happy to have you here. It's a beautiful community of folks that feel the same way as you.
for sure. And I'll have your links and everything like that in the description and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So definitely go follow. But yeah, loved it.
Yeah,
I hope you had
me
a
too.
great time.
I did. The questions were dope. I love them. Like they were really curious. It challenged me too. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, until next time, y'all, we'll see ya.
Bye.